We got her. Mandy McAllister in the house. She is the leader of GoBundance women's group. Tons of entrepreneurship women. She owns a car wash she just bought, and she's a multi-family investor. She is one of my dear, dear friends. It's an amazing episode. You got to jump in here on the Construct Your Life podcast. Give it a listen. Enjoy this episode.
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, that's a lot of hair you're throwing around there, young lady. I mean, that is a lot of hair. I mean, It feels like it gets bigger every time. We got, you know what's crazy? The most guests I've ever had on the podcast, I think you're now same one, or two of my friends that are girls, Annie and Mandy have been the most guests on the podcast. I don't know what that says or what it does. It doesn't really matter, but we have the amazing Mandy McAllister in the house. How are you doing?
I'm just living the dream, Austin. So excited to be here. I'm a frequent flyer. Do you know on Saturday Night Live, if you host 5 times, you get a special jacket? Do I get some sort of a
we're gonna have to do
jacket?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do Construct Your Life jacket, and then we'll have to do like a big beanie because there's a lot of hair there. So we're gonna.
I'm down.
So I say this not to piss anybody off, but I am a wild card. I'm a wild person. I do a lot of crazy stuff, but I am more organized than people think. And one of the reasons I started getting out of real estate myself, and I'm just talking about me, was during COVID, and with interest rates, nothing makes sense anymore. Like the pricing doesn't make sense. I'm cool with like wild stuff and everything like that, but like nothing just made sense to me. And that's why I gravitated towards business, among with learning from people. And I'm not saying you're still heavily involved in real estate, but the first question is kind of, even though a car wash is real estate, there's a business on top of the real estate. What is your initial takeaways right off the bat, owning a car wash and then owning apartment complexes?
Sure. I think that multifamily on non-recourse debt that I own by myself or with just a few partners is always going to be my end game. Okay. I think the nature of that non-recourse debt is really how the rich get richer story. Okay. And I plan to, put as much into that as possible. That being said, you run out of money pretty quick if you don't have an engine for cash flow and you're just kind of living off the dividends, the cash flow, a floor of income for your real estate. So how do you grow if you just have that floor of income coming in that you live off of? Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of things. One, having the opportunity to serve as CEO of GoBundance Women, we do these calls that examine how people got from a 7-figure net worth to an 8-figure net worth. And a thing that I know to be true based off of dissecting these, week after week after week, is that the fastest way to $1 million net worth is real estate. The fastest way to a $10 million net worth is a business, right?
Wow.
So if you want to go to 10 million, 100 million, a billion, there's actually a graph I'll show you that was absolutely mind-blowing that was in addition to this. So if what got me here won't get me there, I need to make a pivot, and therefore car washes.
It was a statement I heard from Alex Ramosi when he says the biggest way to grow wealth that's non-taxable is inside of a business. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because what I was explaining to my guys the other day about, there's the value of the business, and then there's the enterprise value. The value of the business is what you see today in the revenue, but you're not acquainting for what I could make, right? And right. So somebody says to me like, oh, you closed on the business. Like they told me like a week after, like you're a millionaire. And I went, what? And I was like, oh, like I am. Like I didn't even it's not realized value, but we could get that money for the business. Not that I'm selling anytime soon, ever. But it was a wild experiment. Like this thing that you look for forever. Like you're like, okay, what happened? technically it's not in my bank account, but it happened. And then I go, okay, did that change any way I feel? No, let's do more of it. And so it was like, like it was like that realization, and like 2 minutes later, it was like, okay, cool, let's go back to work. Like,
oh my God, it's just like anything,
yeah,
like if a big life thing happens and then, well, how do you feel? Same as yesterday, you know, just
yeah,
the
yeah,
same.
same.
I mean, I do think, I was having this like kind of mini debate, I guess, or just like sharing of thoughts that, if you're buying an apartment building, that is a business. And that is true in many ways. However, if a couple of notes on that, if I want to buy multifamily at a 4 cap, which is really a thing that's happening a lot these days, the 4 cap. So just to zoom out and think of what is true, think of the math of multifamily real estate. Its value equals NOI over cap rate. So if NOI, net operating income, like call that $1 of cash flow. I know that it's not cash flow. Just stick with me for comparison purposes. $1 of cash flow costs me $25 if I'm buying at a 4 cap. That's just the truth of the math. However, if I want to buy a car wash, which includes the real estate usually, is I'm going to pay 3x EBITDA. So earnings before interest depreciation, like that is basically the cash flow number, quote unquote, for a business. So do I want that dollar? Do I want to pay $3 for that dollar of cash flow? Or do I want to pay $25 for that dollar of cash flow? And then kind of the follow up to that is I can see a direct path to tripling the EBITDA for my car wash, to triple the NOI for my real estate. I mean, you'd have to create new units. You'd have to triple the rent, which is not legal and would be terrible for the people living there, right? So the chance to really drive revenue happens in a business in a way that it doesn't happen in real estate stuff, in multifamily stuff.
And when you bought the business, what was easier than you thought right out of the gate?
Um, there were more challenges than you get into stuff not knowing what you don't know, right? And I think a big piece of the work that I've done over the course of the last 5 years or so was to make choices that were reasonable enough and not need to be perfect in my decisions. So I have moved into making what feel like little bets. The car wash in total was about $475,000. I bought single family homes for that amount, so that didn't feel like a huge bet, So what was easier was honestly, there were a number more challenges than what was easier than I thought.
Well, my next question was, what was harder?
I figured because that list is real long, Austin. That list is even the things that I thought were going to not be terribly difficult. Like,
okay, what was one of those things?
I didn't think that changing merchant accounts means collecting of credit cards. Bro, like, oh yeah, you just make some phone calls, you find a group, they support you. And that was tremendously difficult to execute. And it was probably a function of that I'd never done it before. And now if I go do it again, I'll know where to start.
The things, because we're in the process, the things that you don't think about, right? Let's go. We bought a business that was been in business for 22 years. We found out they didn't even own their own domain. We had to go buy the domain. You had to change all the licenses. You got to re-register all the cars. You got to create new relationships with your vendors. But your business has only been open a week.
Yeah.
So then, like, these are the things, changing over the cell phones. Like, I mean, these are the things that you're like, oh, this would be easy. And it's like, no, this is not.
No,
this is
signing over
very
the phone.
strenuous.
Yeah, no, that is the, setting up banking was an easy thing. Like that felt very normal. Like I'd done it before. The vendor piece was interesting too. We acquired basically December 1st. And come to find out in retrospect, there are 3 major systems that have to fail in order for pipes to freeze and pumps to then malfunction. And guess what, Austin? The once in a lifetime, all 3 things malfunctioning at the same time happened in like week 2 of ownership. So we had broken pumps that needed to either be completely replaced or completely rehabbed. We had hoses that froze and were leaking. And there was a lot of deferred maintenance that we'd inherited that we didn't recognize because we've never done it before. Right. But now we're about, 5 months in or so. And we're finally in a place that all of that deferred maintenance is up to par. and we're really making things the right changes. Much like in multifamily, if you're going to increase a rent by a little bit, you want to make a little bit of an improvement in a common area to make sure that your residents know that you care and you're putting that money to good use. Well, we improved a lot of the exterior, made it prettier, and changed the decals on the inside of the self-serve bays. And then we took the self-serve bays from $2.75 to $3.25, which has meant a whole lot more quarters collected.
So I would give up everything to be in your house the moment you got the phone call that the pipes burst. And how did you react? Did negative town go crazy in your brain? Did you breathe like that first big business emergency, which is way different than hey, we have a problem at the apartment complex, right? Because it's a functioning business.
I mean, Tony Robbins said something that, if you are signing up for a business, if you're going to own multiple businesses, the chances of something going wrong at any given moment is basically a certainty, right? So things will go wrong. I knew when I signed up to be a business owner, to be an entrepreneur, that the gene that I would be using is the figure it out gene.
Okay.
It wasn't, puppy dogs and fluffy clouds, but it didn't feel earth shattering. It felt like, okay, I don't know how to deal with this. Who's the first person I call? I'm in this business with my fiance, and he's not really done as much entrepreneurship stuff as me. So I think the most interesting thing was the chance to really dig into communication, dig into, all right, how strong is this relationship? Because we're in it right now. We're in it. We're going to fix this together.
Hold on. This is all new to me. I'm figuring this out for the first time. So typically they say, if you really want to test a relationship, do what me and my fiance did, which was travel together for 9 months in a car with just us. So that was enough. But you decided, because you're Mandy, you wanted to take it another level, and I'm going to go buy a business with my fiance. So
why not?
Unpack that one for me.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 kids, so they have volleyball and judo and all of the things. So we can't be in a car for 9 months. So Scott comes from a really entrepreneurial family. He's a high school football coach and teacher, and this really lends itself to something that he could really be in on. And it worked out. It's working out really great. I say I'm about 80% handy. He's about 90% handy. There is so much figure out how to clamp off this hose. We need to make sure that is filling and the, hydro minder isn't overflowing. There's a lot of handiness necessary if you don't have a full-time kind of mechanic or person working for you. And the size of this deal doesn't afford that. So working with Scott on this has been really fantastic. And honestly, I think it's supercharging our path towards great communication and really kind of leading me to double down that I've made really great life decisions.
I went golfing with my dad recently, a couple months ago, and we were talking about HVAC and plumbing, the business. And he was like, wow, you know a lot in a short amount of time. And I was like, well, I mean, it's not really an option. You kind of got to know what's going on. I was like, second, you just and just so everybody, I'm giving you a secret, okay? Because I've done this my entire life since I was 18. I've been in a lot of meetings and a lot of rooms I probably shouldn't be before I was ready. If I don't know a word or something, I write it down in my notes and I research it later, right? Or I'll go find the person. Yeah, to ask the question.
I mean, I have a perfect piece to this. So I feel relatively confident in apartment buildings right now. I've done enough reps that when I come to a conversation, I speak enough of the language that I can be fluent in it, right? I am not fluent in car wash stuff. Yeah. So when I come to a car wash, I first have to accept that I have this mind of a beginner. I have this insatiable curiosity to really baptism by fire, really get to know things really quickly. And I mentioned the hydro minder. Basically, that's in your toilet, the floaty thingy that makes sure that the water stops. Well, our main guy that helps us out, his name's Bob. I'm like, hey, he owns a company that fixes car wash stuff. I'm like, hey, Bob, we got a problem with the floaty thingy. And he means, oh, you mean the hydro minder? I'm like, yes, Bob. Yes, I do. right? But I've set the table that listen,
Yeah.
I am all in and you are the expert and I need your help. I speak the apartment language, but I don't know jack what I'm doing here. So thank you for your sense of humor, Bob.
Dude, I got the greatest. So we have a guy that works for us. He's 70 years old. He's the oldest guy. He's been working on HVAC and plumbing and electric since he was, 50 years, easy, maybe more. And so the first year of us, then he would come in from the day, and he would spend about 10 minutes telling me about some flanger, router, something, and like all the guys are in the corner just dying laughing, and after like 10 minutes they go, you do understand he has no fucking idea what you're talking about, right? And but what people don't realize, and granted, you got to gain their trust quick, but
Right.
when you buy an existing company, there are people there that do know it, so if they trust you, they'll help you kind of bridge that gap. And we've been lucky enough, because even my CEO, he spent 20 years as a plumber. They didn't really do a lot of HVAC. So him and I are both kind of learning on the fly. He knows enough to be dangerous. But, that is really the thing. And you know what? I had a client this morning. They did a full remodel that he was the project manager on a hotel. And I said to him, he's a very young kid. I said, how ready for you are you for number 2 and 3? He goes, oh, I'm good now. Like, it was just that one. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can handle it now. I got it. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know what I was going to do, but they made it through. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm good now. And it's like, it really just that quick.
I think that's the beauty of this approach of making little bets. Because, end of the day, I came out of pocket like $75,000 to buy this business, which at this point in my investing life, like that would sting, but it wouldn't kill me, right? If I just that went to zero. So if you can make a little bet to do the learning that it takes to really make things happen, then the next one, 2, 3, 4, as you scale, you're gonna be able to, number one, execute much better, and then number two, get that business to a place that you can scale yourself out. Because that's where I'm at. I'm working in the business right now, and I want to be working above it, but I need scale to be able to afford that full-time person to get myself out of it.
Oh, I love it. And so, you're before we got on, we're talking about this amazing group of women at GoBundance. We mentioned a while back when you came on, I think you had just taken over CEO range. It's been a while now. What, before we even get into the learning lessons and what you're doing, like what has that done for you personally in your fulfillment bucket, like running this group?
I started as a member, and now I get to serve as our leader. And, all the time as a member, there were some things that felt like, gosh, if we could just tweak that, it would feel so much more special. If we could just, gain access to those things, then this would really feel more valuable and powerful for my life. And we've been able to open a lot of doors and really get the type of information and really tweak things in such a way that we are helping women scale their businesses, that we are paying attention to, oh, you're doing lots of short-term rental stuff. Let's make sure we're nurturing that and providing you the space that it takes and the tools that it takes to be able to take that to these new levels. And I think too, a chance to have an audience with people that I really admire and wouldn't probably have an opportunity to meet otherwise. We actually just got back from Costa Rica, and a couple of our speakers, man, they just are mind blowing how approachable and just like us they are. And I think a thing time and time again, whenever I get around people who've done bigger things than me or are billionaires or, Fortune 500 presidents, like the thing that hits me the hardest is, oh, they're just people. Oh, they have kids too who need to get to judo and volleyball, So it's in those learnings that, they're just taking bigger risks than me. How can I put myself in a place that I can take a calculated risk that might have this exponential return? Those are the things that hit me the hardest.
And I think, I can only say this because I've been a part of a couple different groups, men and women, all the above, and everything. From the couple people that I've met in GoBundance, the women's GoBundance, I find the women entrepreneurs to be very nurturing, but also very like complete in their thinking.
Mm,
And maybe it's like the emotional capacity of having kids or running a household or all those things. Um, I think when you get around successful women and women that want to pump, we have a lot of women entrepreneurs in the area, and I
mhm.
just love them because they just handle it, man. They don't
Yeah.
even they don't even flinch, you know. And like I just love meeting like powerful, strong women. Like it's exciting to be around because I love that energy. But also, if I'm being honest, you know, we plan to build out most of our middle management and higher management of women because they can handle more of an understanding when it comes to nuance
Mhm.
than a battering ram,
Yeah. I
which is
mean,
which is
it's
most men.
well, men are straight line,
Yeah.
right? Men are, direct. It's if you look back at our brains from, hunter gatherer days, that our brains haven't really evolved much since then. Men needed to kill one antelope, and there was no talking. And you kill the first antelope and then you're done for the day, right? So,
Yeah.
right. But women as gatherers, oh, let's get these berries. Oh, these are a little bit sour. Don't get those over there. They're poisonous. Make sure you go down by the water. Like this communication thing
Yes.
had
There it
to
is.
happen in
Mhm.
our brain. So,
Mhm.
it's the chance to recognize and notice nuance. It's programmed in us from a long time ago, I think.
And you know, we've known each other for a while. We've done a lot of podcasts together.
Mhm.
You know, who were you back when we first met, and then you know, who are you today?
Ooh,
And
good question. I mean, so, I think that much like a lot of women, much like a lot of high performing women, I was bitten by the everything must be perfect bug, because when I was when you're a girl who is a high performer in, the third grade, you raise your hand and you wait your turn, and you need to have the right answer and everything needs to be perfect, right? And that is what gets you rewarded. That's what gets you the pat on the head from your teacher, from your parents. And I very much went into like performance achievement junkie mode, because that is how I felt loved by achieving, right?
Mhm.
So I felt maybe 5 years ago, a thing that I've been working on over the last 5 years is to really break that down, that I'm more than my achievements, that the impact I bring to the world is the ultimate thing that I could bring. And the fear that kept me in achievement mode, that I'm breaking down now, that I'm still not done with, is what's going to take me to that next level.
Well, I think what's interesting to me is I think when you and I first met, I think we were trying to figure out um, who we wanted to be, but more importantly, try to armor our mind that we could get over anything that we chose. Right.
Hmm.
I think that was the game. And what I see now is a firmness of certainty. Not that you know exactly where you're going, but you know exactly who you are.
Mm. And then I can
Right.
handle it.
And you can
I can
handle it,
handle the
right? When I met you,
uncertainty.
you had a job, you were
Hmm.
single, now you're engaged, you're buying more businesses, you're leading. Like it's amazing. Like it really is what they say. Like, you know, you meet these people along the journey and you watch them grow, and it's super awesome to see
Mm.
how confident you are and who you are, but also unapologetic for who you are too. And I love that about your personality.
Thank you, Austin. That means so much to me. And I think that that's the work. That's the work
Hmm.
for anybody, is that,
Hmm.
this only way to be perfect is to really realize who you are, what matters to you, and who you want to grow into. I actually have create certainty written on my whiteboard that I look at every single day, because that is in business.
Hmm.
If I can create certainty to the people who are reporting up to me, then the outcomes are much better. Right. And if
Yes.
I can create certainty within myself, then the path I'm traveling will get me there much quicker, because I'm certain about what that North Star looks like. Also, I have a picture here of this woman who I call the mogul, who I am growing into.
Hmm.
This is exactly who I'm becoming. And I look at that every single day. So my challenge to anybody listening is, how can you create more certainty? And do you have a really clear picture of what you're growing into? And is there a representation that you can put in front of your face every single day to remind yourself, if I feel icky or weird, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do right now in whatever decision that's in front of me. I think about her. I think about the mogul that's looking down at me. How would she show up in this circumstance? How would she solve that problem? And then that puts me in the path of showing up in a way that I want to.
It's so true. I was just talking to my guys yesterday. There's 4 me's inside the company, right? There's the president of the company. There is the recruiter, the branding guy, but there's also the investor and the owner. I don't get to be the investor guy a lot right now. I'm more in the president part. And so I have to sit in each seat and realize who's making that decision in that moment, right? Because there are other owners, and I try to keep them involved, but when it comes to a snap decision, I can make it quickly, as long as it's not a very big financial decision. I like to make those together. But then I have to go back and explain to them why that decision was made, right? So but I'm one of those people too. So I explained it the other day. If you're an owner or leader of a business or a leader of a group of people, your job as an owner is to give the employees that work for you a great place to work, to be protected, to feel safe, to grow. I'm interviewing a lot of people right now. We're hiring. So the number one thing they say, hey, I'm not upset with what I'm getting paid. I'm not upset with the work I do. The management does not listen whatsoever, and there's no room for growth. That's what they all say. And then on the back of that, isn't that what we all want?
To feel seen.
To feel
seen, like you matter.
To be able to grow. If you don't have that, you lose interest, and then you're moving on. It doesn't matter how much you're getting paid.
Absolutely. I recognize that in my own W-2 life back in the day, right? You can make tons of cash, but if you aren't in a position that you could look to the next step, then it doesn't feel fulfilling. And that's what people want to feel in the work is some level of fulfillment.
So you go down to Costa Rica with these girls, you have amazing speakers. What are the biggest takeaways from the trip?
So, my favorite speaker, my favorite woman that we had there, it was this woman, Lisa Song Sutton. If you haven't heard of her, look her up on Instagram. So she was former Miss Nevada. She started some mailbox stores. She started like a spiked cupcake company. She owns a real estate brokerage. Like, these are widely divergent companies, and Homegirl is killing it in every single one of them. And my primary thing that I'm working on right now, going back to the calls of people who made it from 7 figures to 8 figures in GoBundance, the people who did that, generally speaking, went an inch wide and a mile deep. They did one thing and they kept doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. And that's what got them to $100 million net worth. Well, I own car washes and real estate, and I feel a little bit, uncertain in how I should move forward if what I want to do is really double down on something. So in talking to Lisa, the biggest epiphany I had of the whole time in Costa Rica was these widely divergent businesses. How do you get them to the level of growth that is possible for them and not lose your damn mind because you got to switch from real estate brokerage to friggin' cupcakes, So the lesson I'm taking from her and what I'm going to implement this year is she has a full-on operator, a full-on person who is in charge of that business from the beginning of its inception. Sometimes it's giving equity to make things happen. Sometimes it's, hiring an integrator, right? So I feel like I have found an integrator for the GoBundance women role that I have, so that I don't need to be in it as much. But for the car washes, that's the next right step. I need to get enough scale that I can afford to have someone really taking over the day-to-day reins.
This is exactly why you and I connect, because we are the same person. like I'm dead serious, because I'm the face. I'm the person that they call me the tip of the spear. I'm the mayor, but none of those things happen if you don't have the integrator that can do the day-to-day. Period. End of story. Right? And so you have these silos of these businesses, and when you find, I've read it multiple times, when you find that who, boom, you go. You build a business around them. Okay, I'm going to give you a little piece. This is what we're going to do. You go out, tear it up. We're going to bring on great people around you. Boom. Got that going. Move on to the next one. Boom, boom. Right. And that's why I think that there's a lot of people that are great at what they do, but they don't want the recognition. More importantly, they don't love all the other stuff that comes along with it. The going to the chamber of commerce meeting, the speaking to the Capitol, which I did last week. Like they don't want to do that, right? Like, and so when you find those people, you just give them all the support they need. You're their sounding board, you're their vision, and you just let them run. And that's why that it can happen really quickly.
And their brains work in details in a way that my brain just doesn't. So
Correct.
I think this idea, another great conversation was with this other woman, Brittany Brooks, who she owns a really big brokerage in Jacksonville, Florida for KW. And she doubles down on StrengthsFinder, that specific personality test, because the stuff that I love to do like fills me up. And when it comes to expense reports, I freaking suck, Austin. I am terrible. And I'm 6 months behind. So who do I put in that position in order to help me fulfill that need of the business, who that really fills them up? Because to some people, expense reports and numbers and making chaos into something that's really organized and beautiful, that gives them life. It does not give me life.
Let me show you how important this is. This is a true story. I've shared this with some people, but not many. One of my first business partners ever, I met him through the mastermind that we were all a part of. We had Airbnb business together. He got into the military. He was a helicopter pilot. He's at West Point now. He's had 2 kids. He asked me 2.5 years ago, he said, hey, I love my country. I'm a man of honor. He's a young guy. He said, I'm going to go lead, and I'm going to be the best at what I do now and learn the most I can leading men. He goes, I need to take a break from business and be there for my family while they grow up. And I said, I love it. Perfect. We'll shut down that business. So we shut down that business. And I said, the moment that you get out in 2026 in the summer, whatever you want, it's done. Like, I'm going to buy your family a house. You're going to own a piece of everything I own a piece of, and you're going to run my life. I'm going to disappear for 3 months and, reset myself and come back in this different mode. He loves spreadsheets. He loves the penny. He's the most organized human being I've ever met and the most loyal. That's how important. He goes, why would you do this? And I go, because I could teach anybody anything, but to teach somebody that knows me, knows what I'm about, cares about me, cares about my vision, and also is the opposite half of me, you can't put a price tag on how comfortable that makes me to go really chase what I want to go do. And so I'm kind of like the Tasmanian devil right now, like cleaning up my life. So when he comes in and he's like, and this is what he said to me a year ago. He said, yeah, I'm going to come in. He goes, I'm going to cut out 60% of the bullshit you're doing because it's a waste of time. And then we'll focus on the 40. I said, see, you're already paying off.
I think that's so much. That's everything. As you ascend any goal, any level of success, it's getting rid of that BS, right? So how can you focus on the 20-30% that really fills you up, Pareto principle it, and then hand off the rest? So
Yes.
to find someone who can help you delineate what that BS line is that really is gold.
So I had, you'll love this. I was at a business conference. I told this story a couple times. I was at a business conference, and then these 2 guys, one has 16 companies, one's doing 30 million a year. They have 10 companies. They're rolling up massive companies, people managers to a T, people I really respect. Finally met them in person. So we're sitting there. The whole conference is going on. We're not even there. We're out in the hallway talking, and I'm telling them everything I'm going to do, and I'm very excitable, like to get to talk to them. And the one guy that has become a quick friend, who's a master operator. This dude's a fucking savage. He looks at me and I explain to him like my dream and all I want. And he goes, yeah, that's great. And he's like, but why? And like literally like short circuited my brain. And I said, I'm going to get back to you when I have a proper answer, because that question needs a proper answer. And so it took me 6 months to answer his question. And the question was that I believed that I couldn't enjoy my success until I beat myself up enough to earn it because of my addiction. right? And he was like, oh shit. He's like, I need to go reflect on some shit after that answer. And I would, but my question to you is, how many times in our life do we not believe that we're worthy of something because the only way to get it is brute force and working 100-hour weeks. And that's my new thing is like, how do we like, I know it sounds so trite because it's Jim Rohn said it a million times, but how do you become the person that attracts the people, right? There you go. Perfect. How do you become the person that attracts the people that would come into your life that you need to make all this happen?
You know, I think that is a uniquely, we were talking masculine energy and feminine energy. There's that brute force that you bring to go get stuff done. That's the straight line masculine energy. And then there's the relax and surrender. I think every time we've recorded, we've talked about the surrender experiment.
Well, that was you.
Yeah,
it was you.
So
it was you. And I've shared that book 40 times since. So thank you.
Sincerely, like the whole thing, this goes back to what we were talking about, at the beginning, is how do I figure out me? How do I figure out what fills me up and really get attuned to, my own intuition? And you only figure that out by getting quiet. I've heard somebody say, I don't know, I'm going to butcher it, but, prayer is, talking to the universe or God or whatever you believe in. And meditation is listening for the answer. Right? So end of the day, the thing that I am focusing on is how do I get as certain and as clear as possible on who I am, what I stand for, and what fills me up. And then I talk about it. Right? So as an example, the first time I decided I wanted to go bigger in multifamily, this was 2020. COVID had just started. I knew I wanted Class B. And I knew I wanted agency debt, and I knew I wanted Indianapolis because of, all of these, the rent growth and the population and the jobs, and then not Illinois because of the landlord unfriendliness. All of these reasons were super compelling. I didn't have a ton of money to invest at that time, but because I was so freaking clear, Austin, on what I was running after and the why, a guy who had a different problem than me, he needed to place $1 million across my path by way of another business partner. And he went in with that $1 million for us. So the question back to anybody listening that feels wonky or unclear or wants to attract things, it's an inside job first. How can you get clear on who you are, what fills you up, and those things? And as soon as you are clear, talk about it. And then you will begin to attract the right people to help fill those gaps in that vision that you have for your life and your business.
I'm not going to share anymore because that was perfect. She just got on her stage and she went to town. I love it. So if people want to find out about the group, they want to track you down, how would they do that?
Sure. MandyMcAllister.com gets you to all my socials, gets you to GoBundance Women, all of the things.
And gets you to that amazing hair too. So guys, if you enjoyed this episode, send it around, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Guys, let me take a minute to tell you about my buddies over at Lead Hub, Ben and Aaron, the best humans I know. Not only are they amazing at marketing for trade companies, but Ben started his HVAC company in his garage, sold it for multi-million dollars. So when this guy talks, I listen. When we took over Dietz Mechanical, we had 22 reviews in 22 years. In 7 short months, we went from 22 reviews to 107. We went from a 4.2 to a 4.7. We tripled our Facebook presence and we tripled our calls. If you're an HVAC, plumbing, electric, landscaping company, and you're looking for a no BS approach to marketing, you're looking for people who have done it before, you got to go to leadhub.net